Hello and welcome back to Higher Sense with Haz. Today we're going to be doing an exclusive review of none other than an unopened bottle of Lovers by Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton Lovers was released in 2024. Pharrell Williams has collaborated with master perfumer Jacques Cavalier Belletrude to create this fragrance, and they state it embodies the scent of the sun, possibility, and uplifting energy. I can't wait to get my nose on this one. Now it is an EDP, Eau de Parfum concentration, which is good. Now Fragrantica has noted this as a woody aromatic fragrance, so I'll be interested to see if it suits that description. Looking at the bottle here, it's got the lovely magnetic cap. Doesn't just click on, which I do most enjoy. It's metal, it's weighty, it's very nice. The bottle, as you can see, has the name of the fragrance emblazoned on it. Right, okay, so the atomizer sprays as follows. There you go. Now I'll just spray some on the tester strip here. There's about £20 gone, but never mind. Here we go. First impressions, very good, very good. Energetic, yes. Uplifting, very much so. Scent of the sun, I would say so. It smells very bright, very yellow, if you can call it that. It's very bright, it's very light, it's very summery. I think the description is very accurate. And what I can smell is the bergamot off the top, very obvious. There is some ginger in there, which I can detect, which is nice. A touch of wood coming through. There's a touch of wood in there. Now looking at the notes, according to Fragrantica, in brief, in the top, we'll have galbanum and bergamot. In the mid, ginger and solar notes. Whatever solar notes are, whether they have come from the sky or outer space or whatever it may be. But I'm guessing that's the energy and the brightness, what they're describing. And in the base, there's sandalwood and cedarwood, which would make sense to why this has been described as a woody aromatic fragrance. It's a very, very nice fragrance, very pleasant. And I look forward to doing the full review of this one. But to do it justice, I'll have to wear this in its entirety, then I'll be able to get a better idea of the projection and longevity.
8 hours later.
I've now had some time to experience this fragrance and to wear it in a number of different environments, both out in public, around the house, at the gym, etc. Now what I will say is that summer has unfortunately left us and we're now into autumn. Now this fragrance was released at the back end of summer. I do believe it's a summer fragrance and I would have preferred to wear this in a bit higher heat. When I was wearing it, it was in the high single figures, maybe 11, 12 degrees, which might not be ideal for reasons I'll go on to explain. But going back to Lovers by Louis Vuitton, I've had some time to wear this and I'm happy to report that feedback has been fairly positive. There are 6 notes in this fragrance. It does seem quite simplistic. You don't necessarily have to have a huge number of notes to create a good fragrance. When I wore it, certainly off the top, I got some quite green notes from the galbanum. The bergamot added some quite zingy citrus, very fresh, very uplifting. And as it was described, it's supposed to be the scent of the sun, uplifting energy. And I certainly think the top note does encapsulate that very well. Going into the mid, there is ginger and solar notes. Now, ginger is one of my favourite notes. I very much enjoy it. It's a nice touch of spice with a very clean, slightly woody smell, and I do enjoy that. And I can report that the ginger is apparent in this fragrance, and I do enjoy that in the mid. Moving through to the base notes, there's sandalwood and cedarwood, 2 very safe, solid choices of woods. Now these woods form the undertone and backbone of the fragrance. This helps to carry it through its longevity, which is decent. There are 2 notes in the top, 2 in the mid, and 2 in the base. And I will say that the synergy of the notes is very good. The top notes are around for a good half an hour to an hour. They stay somewhat, but do die down as the fragrance moves along. The mid comes in, I would say, after an hour. The ginger comes in, adds a nice little spicy note, which I do enjoy. It's very apparent and noticeable, so that's great if you do enjoy ginger like myself. The solar notes, I think this is just supposed to be energetic, zingy, uplifting, very yellow and bright. That's the notes that I get. It's quite fresh and does represent summer for me. These notes, like I say, come in after about an hour and complement the top notes well. The sandalwood and cedarwood comes in after a couple of hours and it forms the base of the fragrance. and what all of the other notes cling to, and this carries the fragrance through the journey. What I will say is the top notes are very zingy, very bright. The mid comes in as they're reined back slightly, and it gives it a more full and rounded body and a more overall scent profile, as opposed to just the bright zingy notes off the top. And it's a subtle transition as you go through, but it is a nice one. And the woods come in, they creep in after a few hours. You can detect the sandalwood and the cedarwood. It's very nice. It's very creamy. It complements the brightness of the fragrance. Again, there's nothing overpowering in this, and most of the notes are quite subtle. They do complement each other well. There's no fighting for top position here. They do work with each other, and as the fragrance opens up, as time goes on, the other notes come through. I would say it's like a blooming of a flower, to be honest. Little notes poke the head out as other notes pull back slightly. They come to the fore. I think it's very well done. The perfumer has done well with the levels of oils and the notes that he does have in here. As I was talking about the oil concentration there, this is a eau de parfum, which is a decent level of oils in the fragrance. I think an eau de toilette wouldn't last long enough, and I think a parfum concentration would be too flat. So I do think an eau de parfum concentration for this type of summer freshie, as I describe it, is appropriate here. But what I will say is that citruses and freshies don't tend to last very long on me. Now, as you can tell, I'm hot. And what I mean by that is that I run warm. My core temperature is quite high. So when I do wear summer freshies and citruses, they tend to burn off my skin quite quickly. But what I can report is that the longevity for this fragrance, I would say, is around 5 hours, maybe 6 hours on skin. When I did put this fragrance on clothing, however, I would say that it did last a bit longer, and it is detectable on clothes, albeit you don't get much projection at all. So what I would recommend if you're going to wear this fragrance, I would say that you will need 6 to 8 sprays, a couple of them being on your clothing and the rest being on your skin, to get it through the 5 or 6 hour mark. Certainly for me, it may well be different for yourselves. So yes, I would go quite heavy on the sprays. Now, you have to take price into consideration when applying the fragrance, and this may be an issue for some. When wearing the fragrance, I did notice that I was getting pleasant wafts here and there. So the projection on this fragrance, I would say, is quite intimate, to be honest, which is ironic since the name of the fragrance is Lovers. After around an hour, I would say that the projection comes back to around a foot. If you're talking to someone in close proximity, the chances are they will pick up on this very enjoyable, pleasant fragrance. But if you're in a big open space outside, unless you're walking past someone, they may detect a waft of your fragrance. But if you're at distance from people, I'm not sure they'll be able to detect this, because it is quite light, it is quite airy, and it is quite fleeting. Now for me, when I'm looking at longevity, for example, if I put a few sprays on my hand, as I did, and as the hours were going by, I was testing it, I was seeing what I could pick up. Now, for me, longevity is how long you can detect the fragrance. This isn't detecting fragrance. If you haven't to put your nose on your skin, for me, that's the end of the fragrance. So when I'm trying to detect the fragrance, I do it from a few inches. Now, if I can detect the fragrance from a few inches to a decent standard, I think the fragrance is still there. So therefore, I would say I do get 5 to 6 hours at a rather intimate projection level, and certainly the scent bubble or the sillage isn't huge. It isn't very strong. It is pleasant. It's a more relaxed, summery fragrance as opposed to one that's there to get you noticed. I would say that it comes across as quite classy. It does come across as quite expensive fragrance, I would say. Louis Vuitton always do good fragrances. Maybe not great fragrances, because they do seem quite simplistic in their design. I'm not quite sure why it's been called Lovers, because from that it would certainly imply that it's quite a warm, sensual fragrance, quite a seductive, sexy fragrance. But there's no notes like that in here, really. You could argue the ginger is quite a sexy note. I would certainly say that, but with the other notes, this doesn't come across as a date night fragrance. From the yellow juice, that would indicate a summer freshie. So I think it's a bit deceiving in the labelling. The only thing I could say is it's called Lovers. The projection and the sillage is very intimate, but that's the only connection I can make with the name of the fragrance. Looking at the pricing for this designer fragrance, it is £255 for 100 millilitres. That works out at £2.55 per milliliter. It's not hugely expensive, but neither is it cheap. And it is a designer fragrance and not a niche fragrance. So certainly pricing, I would say that it is up there. Where to wear this fragrance? Well, personally, I would wear it casually. I would wear it on the beach or lounging around at home. I would say the season is summer. Could you wear it in spring? Maybe. But I do think that this is a summer fragrance. It is quite pigeonholed. It's certainly not an all year round fragrance. And I do think it has to be a bright, warm, sunny day to wear this. So to conclude, Louis Vuitton Lovers. Do I like the fragrance? Yes. Do I love the fragrance? No. It's a good fragrance. It's not a great fragrance. I'd love to recommend it, but wholeheartedly, I'm just not sure I can. Will this relationship last? Only time will tell. See you in the next review.